You've probably heard that wealthy people know things that non-wealthy people don't know. Well, let me tell you the truth. It's absolutely true. Wealthy people do know things that non-wealthy people and people that want to be wealthy don't know. And the main reason they don't know this is because you can't learn it until you've gone through the experience of becoming rich. Hi, I'm Mark Ford. I'm the author of Ready, Fire, Aim, Automatic Wealth, and a number of other books about business, entrepreneurship, and generating wealth. I've built dozens of multi-million-dollar businesses, including 2 or 3 $100 million businesses, and one that exceeded $1 billion. And if you want to grow wealth and live rich, then make sure to hit follow, because I've done it myself, and you'll always get the best advice. And in this video, I want to tell you the money rules that wealthy people understand that wannabe wealthy people wish they could. What wannabe people do is try forever to get rich. What wealthy people do is try forever not to get poor. You know, Charlie Munger, the guy behind Warren Buffett's great success, he said, I never wanted to be smarter than anybody else. I just want to avoid making the really stupid mistakes that would end up costing me. And that was my rule too. I knew I didn't have the personal strength, or I wasn't interested enough in trading assets to be able to get through all that volatility. I just wanted to make sure I got richer, and my rule was get richer every day. And then I finally figured out a way to do that works for me, and if it works for me, it's going to work for anybody that is a beginner, or anybody that doesn't want to take risk, or anybody that has more important things in their life than worrying about their money. But a second thing that wealthy people do is they buy for quality. They buy for endurance, construction, and durability. So for example, you could buy Maybach for $200,000, maybe $300,000, but that's not the best car. Best sedan that's perfect, that has everything that Maybach has, but that's much more durable and will cost you less money repairing and maintaining it. It will last longer. Is it probably a car that's made by Honda or Lexus, and you can probably buy it even today for like $80,000 rather than $300,000. So if you're truly wealthy and you're not worried about the prestige, why would you spend your money buying a flashy car that makes everybody look at you think you're a jackass, rather than buy something that's anti-pretentious, that's a better car that will make people look at you and say, I like him. One rule that I have is I don't spend a lot of time trying to absolutely minimize my taxes. For one thing, in the long run, you're not going to get away with it. The government's going to come and get their taxes for you, whether you like it or not. And for another thing, you're wasting a lot of time and energy doing something that, if you had devoted it to increasing your wealth, would be much more beneficial to you. Do what you can to live at a low tax world, like live in Florida rather than New York, if you don't mind. I've saved probably $10 million living here rather than New York, maybe more than that. But trying to do the fancy stuff, putting your money offshore, setting up all these kind of crazy trusts, this is probably not going to do you much good. It's much better spending your time figuring out how to build your assets and increase your income. For people that are just starting out, and I tell it to them all the time, is the moment that you move into a house, your first house that you buy and that you like is the house you should try to stay in. Very common mistake people make, particularly in America, where the size of our house, the expense of our house is so important to our prestige. Every time our income goes up, we buy into a bigger house. And this is a huge mistake, because it's not just the money you're spending on that house that is the problem. It's that everything else that's related to living in that house is much more expensive. Everything from babysitters to plumbers to the furniture you put in your house. Move up to the house where you have good neighbors, you like your house, you've got the conveniences, and then stay there. As you get wealthier, you don't need to move into those fancy neighborhoods, because you won't be getting anything more for it, but you'll be spending a lot more money. Another big rule is that smart, wealthy people don't chase big gains. The secret to getting more wealth is not to chase after huge, impossible returns. If you think about the biggest scam, perhaps, in financial history done to wealthy people, it was Bernie Madoff. And what did Bernie Madoff promise people? He didn't promise them 50% returns. He promised them 15% returns, slightly above the stock market. That's how he got all the wealthy people in. I promise you, if he was promising 30% returns, none of them would have been interested. It's the fact that his promise was reliable that was so attractive to wealthy people, because they understand that the difference between 8% and 10% over a lifetime of wealth is huge. And so they're looking for the the safest way to make an extra couple of points, not how to get wealthy overnight by making 100 to 300%. Another big rule is that smart, wealthy people, they very seldom talk about money, except when they're having conversations about money with people that are equally rich. Otherwise, they don't talk about money. They're embarrassed to talk about their wealth because what they're looking for is what we're all looking for. They're looking for human connection with people they like, who for the most part make much less money and have much less wealth than they do. So to talk about how wealthy I am to my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu trainer who maybe makes $80,000 a year, it's going to be bad for both of us because he's going to start thinking he should charge me more and I'll pay him more, but eventually it's going to be bad. He's going to be asking too much and I'll have to find somebody else. And I'm not saying that theoretically. This has happened to me 500 times in my life. So I talked to somebody recently that told me that rich people don't need to have budgets and poor people are the only people that need to have budgets. And I can tell you from my own life that that's not true. I have done it both ways. Of course, when I didn't have much money, you have to live on a budget if you're responsible. But as I got wealthier and started earning more money, I mean like a lot more money, I got to the point where it didn't matter what anything cost me. If a dinner cost $600 or $6,000 or $16,000 or $20,000, it made no difference to me and I didn't care. That for a while felt good, but only for a short while. It was like I was taking drugs or something. For example, deciding that I'm not going to spend $6,000 on dinner just because some jackass in my group wants me to buy a $3,000 bottle of wine. And that felt good to me, that I felt like I was being responsible again. So we are living in a world where there are other people and limited resources, and I'm telling you, it's way better to be responsible with your money than just to throw it away like it doesn't matter, because it does. Somebody once told me that a rule that you should follow if you're wealthy is take a lot of risk, because since you have so much money, you can recover. In fact, this is a little bit of what the standard financial experts say about when you're young, you should take risk because you can recover. And I think that's ridiculous. My rule, as I said, I don't want to get poorer. That's the number one thing. And here's why. If you're making enough to sustain yourself, even enough that you can take care of the normal pleasures in life, which you can right now if you have a family income of about $150,000, $120,000 a year, you can have everything that a wealthy person can have. So if you're at that level, why would you ever take the risk of dropping down? It doesn't make any sense to me. It never did. And I think that smart people are always trying to minimize the risk. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't go into a risky venture. I did a couple things like that. I made 2 movies, and of course I was hoping that they would work and I would make money from them, but I knew that the chances were very small. So I limited the amount of money I was willing to lose on each of these movies. In each case, it was less than $1 million. When I wrote that first check, I said to myself, I'll never see this money again. And guess what? I never saw it again. So here's a money rule that experienced wealthy people know that you may have never heard. Never lend, give, or invest more money with a friend or relative than you're happy to lose. Why? Because there's a good chance that when you mix your personal feelings with investing or even loaning money, you're going to lose that money. What you don't want to do is lose the relationship. I've seen this happen countless times to friends of mine. They're not speaking to somebody anymore because of some financial situation where they went into it even-handedly, but one person's expectations was not satisfied. Don't do that. If you're going to lend, give, invest money with somebody that's a friend or relative, tell yourself right away, am I going to still want this relationship? Am I not going to bring it up? Am I not going to resent him or myself if I lose all this money? Because there's a good chance that you will. And ever since I've followed this rule, things have been fine. In fact, I can tell you that the last time I invested money with a friend of mine, he was a good friend, and I said, this is the amount of money that I can give you for your business idea, which I think is totally going to fail. But because you're my good friend and I believe in you, I'm writing this to you. And I don't believe I'm ever going to get this back, so you don't have to feel guilty when you never give it to me back. But don't ask me for any more money, please. And that's exactly what happened. And when he came back and asked me for more money, I said no. And so I still like him and we're still friends. Well, one of the most obvious rules is wealthy people know that you can't buy prestige, love, and all the things that we as human beings want in our life by displaying your wealth. Wealthy people know that actually the more you try to do that, the less you get of it. Think of the guy that moves into your neighborhood and he's driving a Ferrari and he's got these fancy clothes. He kind of prunes himself in front of you. What are you thinking of that guy? You're not admiring him. You're thinking he is a jackass, right? That's certainly what I always felt about that kind of wealthy person. The person that's a showboat. The person that thinks that having the most expensive expensive cars, the flashiest clothes is going to make people admire him. But you'll get exactly the opposite of that. And if you spend your money in any way that you think is going to buy you prestige, it's just not going to happen. Here's a money rule that smart, wealthy people know that poor or wannabe wealthy people get confused. It's about debt. Debt is generally a very bad thing because debt makes you weak, takes away your power to compound your wealth, takes away the spirit, the courage that you have to increase your work. However, there are types of debt that can make you wealthier, but you have to distinguish between the two. And one of the things that we do in our program is we help people understand the difference between good debt and bad debt. 80% of the debt that people take on is bad debt. It will make them poorer. But there's 20% of the debt that you can use to make yourself wealthier. You know, a good example is real estate. If you're buying real estate correctly, adding debt to it, in other words, taking a mortgage, taking a loan from a bank, will multiply your wealth. But if you're buying real estate stupidly, then it's going to break you. It's going to make you poor. So there's good debt and there's bad debt, and smart, wealthy people know which is which. You can learn it and we can teach it to you. One of the money rules is that you don't need to be technically wealthy. You don't need to be a multimillionaire to live as well as a millionaire or a billionaire. And so don't feel like you have to shoot for that multimillionaire status. So if you want to know more about that, click the video on the screen now.